Hi, everybody. It's Karen Christian again, coming to you. Today's topic is going to be about communication with spouses during the COVID-19 slash coronavirus quarantine, lockdown, social distancing, whatever phrase you're using for that. Once again, just encourage you, if you have any specific content you'd like to see addressed, please email me directly at kchristian2424@gmail.com, or you can send me a text or call me 703-505-2975. My intro that I did yesterday I sent to my sister. Thank you for looking at that, Kimmy. And she said it was good, but it was a little long and I needed to kind of be more organized and tighten it up. I agree. So I'm going to try to keep this to 5 minutes, keep it real brief. And then, like I said, if you have specific questions or topics you want me to cover, please just email me or text me those topics. So today's going to be about communication with spouses during this time. Kind of going to address 5 key takeaways, and I've sort of got notes over here that you'll kind of see me looking at. So I talk about increasing communication during this time more than you normally would, and that's just because there's going to be things, you guys are with each other pretty much 24/7 with not a lot of breaks from each other because you're the only people and your family members that you can talk to. So really going to try to increase communication during that. What does that look like? It looks like sort of normal marital communication, but not all of us do that perfectly anyway. So I'm going to just give you some tips for that. So I talk about check-ins, doing a daily check-in with your spouse at the beginning of each day and talking about your goals and expectations, what needs to be done, sort of division of labor, whether that's kids, sticking to the schedule, forming a new schedule, what have you. I think that's very important. Throughout the day, continuing to communicate. If something's changing, if you've changed something, deviated from something, let your spouse know what you've done, or even better, collaborate with them before you do it. At the end of every day, I think it's important that you kind of do a day in review with your spouse. This does not have to be long. You can do it over a glass of wine or cocktail or whatever your sort of nightly wind down routine is. But just kind of check in. How was the day? A lot of the people that I work with in the military would call this an after action report. And this is basically, hey, what did we do well? What should we sustain? And what do we need to improve? And this should be sort of, done in a very constructive way where this worked for me, this didn't work for me. So that's something that's important to do, I think, at the end of every day, because it kind of helps set you up for the next day. You don't harbor any resentments or disappointments about the day if something didn't go right. So that's definitely something I recommend. When you're doing your communication, make sure you use I feel statements. I know that sounds weird, and sometimes people feel cheesy doing it, but it's very helpful to kind of have you own your feelings about what you're feeling. So examples are, I feel when you left the plates on the counter that those were there for me to clean. So that's just an example, not that that would ever happen in this house, but that would be something you'd want to talk about, or how you'd want to talk about it. I also talk about understanding that you all have various social needs and desires. So consider if you or your spouse is an extrovert or an introvert. Usually couples aren't matched on that. I can tell you, my husband and I, he's more extroverted than me. And so during the day, like, he definitely needs more social contact than I really need or want sometimes. But I know that that's something, so I know it's important to him. So I try to, kind of meet him in the middle. So just kind of recognize what your spouse is and what their needs are in terms of extroversion, introversion. The same goes with your kids. If your kids are really extroverted this social time, and I'm going to do another talk on kids, so I'll kind of save that for them. But just recognize also, like, if you're a mom and you're used to being home all day by yourself or only having a couple contacts, and now you have a house full of kids or more kids than you're used to having and your spouse, that might demand more on you socially than you're used to. And that's going to emotionally drain you more. If you're an introvert. So even more reason for you to have some alone time, factor that into your day. Talk about that at the end of the day. Did you not have enough time for yourself? And what does time to yourself look like? Does it look like going on a walk, exercising? I know you can't go to the gym right now, but doing yoga, or just sitting by yourself in your room on your phone or on your iPad and surfing whatever social media, whatever you want to surf. Is that what alone time looks like? If that's what you need, then schedule that in somehow and talk to your spouse about that. Super, super important. Because I think this avoids what my next sort of takeaway is the increased sort of propensity to snap at each other or lose your temper over little micro things that sometimes like wouldn't matter to us in a daily schedule, but now because we're kind of cooped up and we're only interacting with that person, things are getting under your skin. So what do you do with that? I say it's similar to if somebody at work makes you mad and you want to talk to them right away. I always tell people at work, like, hey, do a draft email and then go back to it later. If it's still super important to you, once the emotions died down, then look at the email and send it if you think it's worthy. So something really makes you angry, like you're getting angry in the moment, kind of just table it right in that moment, if you can, unless it's like a safety issue. And then go back to it later. This could be part of the end of the day review where you're like, hey, you did this earlier, it really bothered me, it made me feel X, and then kind of work through that. Something that I always ask couples to do is called mirroring, and that's basically that the person you're speaking to mirrors back what you've said. So I heard that you said that I made you feel this way. That wasn't my intention. My intention was that I was going to get the plates later, that kind of thing. That's kind of like a benign example. Hopefully you're not fighting about plates. There's way more to fight about. Anyway, so that's kind of just a communication tip, is like, if it's big enough that you want to address it later, go ahead and address it. If it's something that's sort of a pattern or theme in your marriage that you know is like kind of a hot button issue for you or your spouse, now may not be the time to like, let's solve that as we're under one roof, under increased anxiety. The kids are home. Maybe you're worried about money, getting toilet paper, whatever your stress is. Like, let's not address those hot button issues right now. Let's kind of table those until things calm down. Okay. Like, now's not the time for that. But then after, definitely we'll help you get through that. And then finally, I talk about this, for a lot of my friends or family or people out there that are military couples. You guys are really good at reintegrating and sort of deintegrating, is that a word, your spouse. So I'm talking about like when they go on deployment, they come back from deployment. I kind of see this as sort of a micro instance of that, right? So your spouse is gone most of the time. A lot of the people I work with are gone from their spouses like 8 to 12 hours a day. And now all of a sudden your spouse is there constantly. And so they are reintegrating into the household. And I think it's important for you guys to talk about your expectations. The spouse that stays home normally, if there is one, what do they need help with? What would they like help with? What would they like the spouse who's normally gone most of the time to kind of just not really integrate into? And I don't mean integrate, but I mean, if your spouse sort of has like the household running the way he or she wants it, and now you're back and you've got all these great comments or feedback for them about what they should be doing, just understand that might be perceived as criticism. And especially during this time of anxiety, things aren't going to look like they normally look like anyway. So if the spouse that's gone a lot is seeing the spouse that's home, like, oh, I see you do X, Y, and Z. Well, the spouse that's home is like, hey, I don't normally do that. I don't normally have all of the kids with me. This is how I'm adapting to it. Definitely have a discussion about it, but just kind of be mindful of that reintegration period that's usually wrought with like couples arguing a lot more. The spouse who's reintegrating is giving tips and ideas for how things could run more efficiently. I hear that a lot from spouses. And the spouse who's been home is like, yeah, thanks for that. I know how this works. I've been doing this for 6 months. So I know it's not quite the same thing, but I do think it's sort of a micro instance of that happening. So just something to be mindful of for you guys. So those are sort of the big tips. I went over 5 minutes because I like to talk, I guess. Anyway, if you have any tips, suggestions, questions, please email me and send me a text, give me a call. I would like to set up Zoom meetings in the future. And I'm going to do another video on communication with teens and then one on scheduling. And that'll be it for now. Thanks, guys. Bye.